I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're uncovering a thrilling blend of history, mystery, and modern-day immigration issues with one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite guests. Her name is Margaret Donnelly, and she has penned a powerful book. It is called Bolivar's Heart, a historical novel. This powerful story weaves the legend of Simón Bolívar's missing heart with a gripping contemporary drama involving a young woman caught in the crosshairs of immigration enforcement. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Authors Tranquility Press for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Margaret, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Margaret, what inspired you to explore the legend of Bolivar's heart?
Well, the development of the book actually began when I traveled to Argentina in 2006 for an international book fair. And I met Katia Hibaja, a Quechuan consultant for the mountain of the Alta Montaña in the city of Salta. And she seeded an interesting conversation about a man whose name was Juan Bautista Condorcanqui Tupac Amaru, also known as the last Inca king. Juan Bautista was the half-brother of known as Tupac Amaru, who was executed by the Spanish because he was the precursor of the War of Independence against Spain in Peru. Was arrested and sent to a Spanish prison for 40 years. When he was released, he came back through Argentina because he couldn't return to Cusco. And so he actually died in Buenos Aires. In 1825, before he died, he wrote a letter to Bolivar asking for permission to return to his beloved Cusco. At that time, Bolivar was leading the War of Independence against Spain in Peru. And it so happens, according to Katia, Bolivar never answered the letter. And so this mystery actually continued when I traveled to Santa Marta, Colombia 2 years later, doing some ground research on Bolivar. And I heard that Bolivar's heart had been stored in the cathedral of that city. And I actually wondered why this detail was so important. So I contacted a local historian who walked me through some elements that are part of the book. Except for Juan Bautista's letter, which is a part of the historical archives of Argentina, I had no academic document trail to follow, so I listened to the oral culture. So what happened to Bolivar's heart? Well, there are two things. The heart was separated from his body during the autopsy and placed in a coffer. His physician and Bolivar were probably aware that of the ancient Egyptian belief that every human heart appreciates the intelligence of the soul. The Egyptians never destroyed the heart. His heart, as well as his remains, were transferred to the Cathedral of Santa Marta until his heart was never given to the people of Cusco and remained in the cathedral until the coffer eventually disappeared. Now, what's interesting, Logan, is that Bolivar dictated a letter donating his heart to the people of Cusco as proof of his true affection for the heirs of the kingdom of the sun. The letter was dated December 10th of 1830, 1 week to the cathedral, and it eventually disappeared, according to local folklore. Some say that the original was destroyed by someone who wanted to protect the establishment. A copy survived. It was copied by a priest associated with the cathedral, okay? So that's where the novel begins its momentum, because two Inca royals get connected with the story. They were kidnapped by agents of the state when they were teenagers in the middle of Cusco. Isabel was taken to an underground facility and beaten and raped and sodomized and called stupid Indian. Antonio, her brother, was 14 years old. She was 17 years old. Antonio was picked up by men, but escaped. Now, why were they kidnapped? Actually, because they were feared by the deep state because of their association with the mythological foundation of the region. She was considered Huila, Mother Moon, and he was considered godson or Inti. They're separated. She's transferred to Spain also spends 40 years in Spain until her captors actually transfer her to the United States, to Dallas, where she is found by law enforcement people and taken to a local hospital. So the story begins to evolve because we start finding out about what we talk about, the poignant exploitation of identity and the survival of persecuted modern day royal Incas. It's still going on in the center of Latin America.
It's a fascinating story, wonderful writing to tell it to the audience. Did your own Venezuelan roots influence the writing of this novel?
My Venezuelan background, of course, influenced writing this novel. I was born and raised in Venezuela, Logan. I mean, Bolivar's soul, spirit could be soaked in the environment. I went to a high school next to a fort where he stayed during the War of Independence. My mother went to a high school that served as the situs of the Congress of Angostura, led by Bolivar. I traveled to Caracas and visited his estate and saw how he grew up. He was born into a well-to-do family. I went to Santa Marta and visited the state where he died. And of course, I was very open to the folklore, the local folklore that I pan out in the book.
Why do you think Bolivar continues to inspire so much passion today?
Well, in my book, I talk about why he was so significant, and I'm going to read it. Bolivar was the dean of a new vision for Latin America. By the time he wrote his letter from Jamaica in 1815, at the age of 32 years old, he knew that incredible suffering over 300 years of Spanish occupation had been in the he was the dean of a new vision. He led us away from a culture of victimization. He freed 5 countries. I mean, the 5 countries were Colombia, Peru, Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador, and some historians add Panama. So he taught us about being agents, powerful agents of change.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why he's so significant.
Yeah.
He's considered like George Washington of Latin America.
Yep. A pioneer, a founding father. Talk to us a little bit about what you hope readers will take away about today's immigration struggles through Isabel's story?
The number one, my purpose was and is to teach North Americans about the history of Latin America. It's loaded, as you know, with many historical details. Secondly, the second point is I tracked down Isabel's journey as a slave. I mean, she lived in Spain as a slave for 40 years until her captors transferred her to Brownsville, Texas, and then brought her to Dallas. And in Dallas, she is held by two immigration attorneys, David Levin and Gloria Garcia, who attempt to develop an asylum case for her. And the book is very detailed. I mean, it's kind of like a manual. I mean, what it takes to develop an asylum case for an immigrant, especially an immigrant like Isabel in distress. Law enforcement here wanted to return her to Peru, and of course she kept insisting that she could not return to Peru because she was a threat and is a threat to the deep state. They wanted to return her to Spain because they said she actually resettled there for 40 years. But, you know, David and Gloria argued that she didn't resettle because she was a slave. She was taken there against her will. So the story goes on how David Levin tracks down her brother and finds him in Colombia, and how he connects with him. And of course, the end of the story is a happy ending for Antonio and Isabel.
Absolutely. Gloria Garcia, the challenges she faced reflect the same real world challenges that are faced by immigration attorneys today, right?
What do you mean?
I was saying that the Gloria Garcia reflects the real life challenges that are faced by immigration attorneys.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the book is very good, very thorough about what immigration attorneys do to defend immigrants.
Yeah. What do you hope readers take away from this? Do you hope they'll learn about the plight of the people who come to America seeking a better life?
Exactly. It's a very poignant story. It really teaches people that many people, many victims end up here unwillingly, especially children who are brought by their parents or are sent by their parents to the United States. So it's you know, and it's no easy task to defend these people, as you know.
Yeah. Have you envisioned this as a film? I think it'd be a terrific movie.
It was made into a Mexican movie, and it's being streamed by an entity called Algo Media .online. It's in Spanish, of course.
Wonderful.
But it has been, you know, made into a movie.
Yeah.
So one of the points that I want to make is how everything that goes around comes around. The journey of all these characters, especially of Isabel, she started in Peru. The slave trade took her to Brazil and then to Spain. She ends up being transferred to the United States. And it so happened she was very lucky, and is very lucky, that she found two immigration attorneys who took this very seriously and did everything that they could to represent her before the immigration authorities. And finally, they realized that the best thing that they could do was to transfer her back to Peru. And that happened with the help of Native Americans who traveled to Peru because it's just part of our indigenous makeup or landscape. Many Indian Americans go to Peru to honor the Apus, the sacred mountains. And so David and Gloria connect with them, and the Indians help her get to Peru and join her brother.
Wonderful.
Isn't that fantastic?
Isn't
that a fantastic story?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's really hard it's hard to believe that things like this happen.
Yeah.
Especially in modern times.
I know.
Now, to inject some history, the important thing that we need to understand here in North America is that in Latin America, there have always been native rebellions, always. When Isabel and Antonio were kidnapped by state agents, okay, there was a really strong native insurrection called the Tupac Amaru movement. It was actually headed by Augusto Pinochet, the president of Chile, who controlled Chile from 1973 till 1990. But Pinochet formed an operation called Operation Condor. And it became sort of a geopolitical alliance to fight against guerrillas like the Tupac Amaru movement, the Shining Path, and several countries were a part of this operation, and supported also by Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and the United States. So this story presents facts of what happens in Latin America and how events like these cause the massive immigration that we have always seen to the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine how these immigrants feel when they come to the United States? I mean, we are the country of freedom, you know, and safety, opportunity, abundance, education, jobs. It's just incredible.
It is incredible. This is a tough time now, though, for immigrants arriving in this country. There's a lot of fear. There's fear of deportation. There's fear of exercising their right to free speech. Tell us a little bit about the climate right now, what you're hearing from your clients. You're an immigration attorney. I guess there's a lot of widespread fear, correct?
Well, most of them are terrified, Logan. And they're terrified because, I mean, they've been divested of their legal rights in many cases. But we've lived through this before. As I told you in another interview, we went through this with Ronald Reagan, and it culminated in the legalization law of 1986 when President Reagan realized there was no way that he could for 6.6 million people. So I think it's hopefully, I pray that will happen with President Trump.
Yeah, I'm praying too. Something has to be done. There are people here who have lived here years, decades. Their children are here. Their lives are here. They came here just like our parents came here, or you came here for a better life. And, it'd be a sad day in America to see that this land of hope and opportunity turns its back on people in need, don't you think?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to the book, when Maria delivered Isabel to Antonia, he has the letter that Bolivar left donating his heart to the people of Cusco. He has a copy of it. And they traveled to a town called Pomacanchi outside of Cusco, and where Juan Bautista Condorcanqui had a house. It was destroyed by the Spanish. They dig a hole on the ground. They say their prayers. And basically, what Antonio does is that he talks to Juan Bautista Condorcanqui and to Bolivar, their spirits. And he says, we couldn't bring Bolivar's heart, but we brought his letter. And may this be a symbol of his heart, of how he felt for us and how he loved us.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Isn't that a nice ending?
It is. It's a beautiful ending. Yeah. Without it, absolutely. Absolutely. There are so many powerful scenes in your book, so many memorable scenes. Isabel's struggle in the psychiatric ward is incredible. Tell us what it was like for you writing that passage in the book, that section of the book.
Well, as you know, I'm a minor in history, so I'm very knowledgeable about Latin American history. And writing it was pretty emotional for me, pretty emotional, because I have had clients who have been victims of the slave traffic. I have innumerable stories, especially about women who end up in my office. One in particular, and one pretty recent case involved a lady from Ecuador who became a part, actually, she became a part of the trade traffic against her will. And she was caught here in the United States, and the authorities turned her into an informant. And she worked for them for a couple of years. And while she was my client, I eventually immigrated her because she made an American. She got married to him. And with the cooperation of the immigration authorities, we were able to adjust her status to lawful permanent resident.
Wonderful, wonderful. That story has a happy ending, no doubt, and that's wonderful. What's next for you? Are you working on any new books? Tell us a little bit about your writing.
Well, my writing really it has been replaced. Not only do I have a very active immigration practice, especially now, but I have dedicated much of my spare time to promoting my books. Doing presentations, going to book fairs in London, Buenos Aires, Madrid, talking to people, and so my books are getting around.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, they should get around because they're wonderful, they're very readable, they're very enjoyable, and they tell important messages. The name of the book we've been focusing on today is Bolivar's Heart, a historical novel. It is a riveting journey through the past and present that explores courage, legacy, and the unbreakable spirit of a people. Margaret, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Muchas gracias, Logan.
Muchas gracias, my friend.
Te quiero mucho. I love you very much.
Thank you. I love you very much as well. Te quiero mucho. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.